Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. He ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hapu, ti he Māori ora. And what that karakia says is, cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. It's the breath of life, which seems very appropriate for a very frosty start like today, and a beautiful day. So welcome everyone, a special warm welcome to our community board members, Gai Broker from Temuka and Natasha Rankin from Geraldine. And welcome to our visitors and guests and Councillor Elizabeth McKenzie from ECAN, who's on Zoom there. Apologies, we've received apologies from Raven Hessel from the Pleasant Point Community Board, from Peter Burt and from Gavin Oliver. Any other apologies? Someone like to move that those are? Sorry. Thank you. I'm not aware of any items of urgent business. And matters of a minor nature for discussion later in the meeting. No one has anything to bring up? Lovely. I'll just call for any declarations of conflict of interest for any of our items today. None noted. So my chairperson's report over the last odd kind of few weeks, where we've been mostly Zooming and having odd kinds of meetings. I've attended 2 Tangata Whenua steering group meetings. Those are progressing very well. I've met with the group manager of environmental services. I attended an NZTA webinar about urban mobility for livable cities, which was very interesting, lots of interesting points. Along with this worship, I've been meeting with a community member about starting a local native plant nursery to boost the planting of natives in the district. Been having discussions with the parks manager about making our walking tracks accessible for all by removing the barriers, which is hugely exciting for me, and attended a NOTOP meeting. I'll move that you accept my report if someone would like to second. Confirmation of the minutes from the meeting on the 28th of April. I'll take it that you've all read the minutes. Thank you. Now we'll get into the first of our reports. I'd like to welcome Judith Earl-Durlay from Environment Canterbury, and she's got a presentation here and an air quality update. So related to all the monitoring and things that goes on in the district for air quality, particularly in the winter. So thanks, Jude.
Kia ora. Thank you very much for having us along today. And look, Councillor Scott asked to pass on his apologies. He's got some double commitments, but it's great to have Councillor McKenzie, who also sits on the air portfolio, with us joining through. Yes. Hello. It's great to have you. Councillor McKenzie joining us as who's part of the air portfolio. There's 4 of our councillors that sit on the air portfolio. So the kind of a session of 2 halves. The first is actually Tim Mallett is going to provide a presentation on the spatial variation of PM 2.5 concentrations across Timaru that was prepared by Angela Scott. And so it's, you might remember back in 2018, we had monitors all around Timaru looking at that spatial variation. It really came from a question from our community around, is NZ Square only the bad place in Timaru for air quality, or actually is there issues with spatial across Timaru given our geography, etc. The second part of the presentation is just a bit of an update on our winter program coming ahead and some matters that we've discussed at briefings last year, but I'm acknowledging some of you are new to the council since that time, so welcome. And I'm happy to answer any questions we can or arrange a conversation if that's appropriate. Councillor Mackenzie, is there anything else you wanted to say?
Not at this stage, no.
So, Tony's come and we've got some of those A3 sheets that was attached as a PDF, I think twice, that was my error, sorry about that, to hot off the press, literally this done a process this morning. So, are you right?
Yep.
Do you want
Is that going to
to
click it forward?
Councillor Mackenzie see this presentation?
We can have a quick report on Alicia's computer. What we can do,
I could email it through to you if I think it was.
we can quickly flick it through here if you like.
Yeah, so we'll email that through to you. We'll get a start and
It'll take me a minute.
Thank you. First of all, apologies to anyone who's been waiting 2 years for this. We did the monitoring in winter 2018, and it's taken a bit longer than we expected to crunch through all the numbers. And a couple of wee hiccups on the way, so apologies for that. And also apologies from Angie Scott, who it's really her that's run the whole project, managed all the consultants and done all the analysis. But she couldn't be here today, unfortunately, and so she's asked me to come along and present it. My suggestion is, if there's any questions of clarification, butt in and ask me, so it makes sense going on from there. But if it's anything major about the procedure or the results or methodology or that, maybe wait till the end, and it may be that I need to make a note of the question and refer back to Angie, can get back to you on that. So as you know, the monitoring site is at Anzac Square at the moment. It was at Timaru Main School, and most of you probably know this, but back in 2004, and then when the school closed, we had to move. We did do a little bit of monitoring around the city, 4 different places back then, and on the basis of that, chose Anzac Square, and we're very appreciative of having Anzac Square available to go to. It's a great spot, of course, because it's got a bit of open area around it. But 14 years later, and while the plan hearings were being discussed and debated, the question arose, is that still a representative site? And the numbers that we measured there, of course, were used to manage the whole of Timaru. So the question was, well, is that fair to do that? So the aim was to try and work out how does the M2.5 vary across Timaru in winter. Are there parts where the air quality is better or worse? And as I say, Anzac Square is still the best place for getting those single regulatory values. The equipment used to get the official concentrations is quite expensive. And so it's not really an option to put 5 or 6 sites around the place, but nowadays you can get very good, much cheaper, non-regulatory instruments. So it makes investigations like this a lot easier than they were 10 years ago. So what did, it says we do, what did Angie do, and the consultants? They put 20 of these little portable optical samplers around Timaru, and the key to that was the volunteers that agreed to host them on their properties and put up a little whiny noise sometimes and power cords running everywhere. The only problem with these instruments is they do drift a little bit over time, and if you're really interested in how one concentration varies from another one, you really want to know that the 2 instruments are measuring the same thing, giving this giving the same results, that they haven't drifted away from the correct number. And the way to do that is we put all 20 of them up at Anzac Square, in the bottom left photo there, and ran them for about a week. and obviously they should all get the same numbers. Then put them out in the field and then put them back there again to see if they moved. And if they have moved, you've got to adjust the readings a bit, which is where a lot of the complications came in. So they were out over the winter 2018. And to top that up, because obviously there's gaps between all those 20 locations, we had an extra sample which we fitted on the front of the vehicle there, as you can see, and basically drove around on half a dozen evenings, tried to pick the cold, high pollution evenings, drove around between all the fixed monitoring sites, get a bit of an idea of how it was varying sort of metre by metre. And that was another start at analysing all that data as well. This is just a little QA thing. How did the different instruments perform relative to each other? Most of them were pretty good, one or two drifted a wee bit, but they could be adjusted for. And then on the right there is how the different sites overall vary from average. So, and it'll be clearer in the next slide, but basically see a whole lot of sites were pretty close to the Timaru average. And then you've got one that was quite a bit lower, I think it looks like Corrigalese, and one that was quite a bit higher. Well, when I say quite a bit, 2%, 3%, it's not a huge amount, relative to all the other ones. And one other pleasing thing was there didn't appear to be any evidence of a very local source like the house next door massively impacting on any of those sites. They did try and choose sites that didn't have a smoking chimney 6 feet away from the monitor and appeared to achieve that. So this is the really interesting bit to me. What were the results? This is the whole average over the whole study period, the whole of the winter. And the key at the top there, you can see the white is the low pollution, black is the highest pollution, but be aware of that scale, it's from 10 to 25, so it's not going down to 0 anywhere. But as you can see, some fairly low areas, overall averages up the top there, and maybe a bit surprising, maybe not, Timaru Central, quite low, and the highest in the black there, which we were a bit relieved to see, included the Anzac Square site. I should have said, going into this, the assumption is that on a cold, still winter night, cold air drags off the Southern Alps, it sort of moves slowly across the island. You couldn't really call it a wind, it's pretty light, but there's a gentle movement of air, it sort of slides off the Alps, down across the plains and out to sea. And so you'd expect smoke that's emitted in the northwest of Timaru to come sliding gradually down towards the southeast. But of course, you then add in all the topography and the valleys and things, which is way more interesting than Christchurch. To keep track of. So that kind of fitted with that expectation.
What's acceptable on that? You've got 10 to 25. Where should we be?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we have daily averages, which this isn't, guideline or standards, and we have annual guidelines, which this isn't. The annual for PM 2.5 is 10. So if that was all year, you'd be worried it was high, but of course it's not. It's winter and it goes a lot lower in summer. So slightly higher than we should be, but hard to get a really direct comparison. There isn't a winter-only standard anywhere in the world. So.
As far as topography, would they represent some of the lower areas in Timaru or not, the black area? I mean, if you had your assumption wrong around we have a continuous easterly, an easterly, that would indicate that perhaps there might be a major emitter, such as the hospital, going that way.
Yeah, we did do modelling at the hospital right through for a year, and occasionally that boom comes into town, into the Black area, but the vast majority of the time it's going somewhere else. And as you say, in the nor'easter, it's obviously heading off towards the southwest. But also, and everyone here is much more expert on timber meteorology than I am, but my understanding is a lot of the time that nor'easter is a daytime wind, and winter cold, still evenings, it's the nor'west drift. The nor'easter doesn't begin until the next day. That's my understanding.
I disagree with that. I mean, we have an easterly, and even when it's still, it drifts in.
Okay.
So, I mean, surely that should be known. It should be part of.
Well, there was a wind direction meter at every one of those 20 sites. Yes, so we do have that wind data, which is, So that's the study average. And then this is the same, this is the daily average, 2.5, through the course of the study. The big graph on the left is the average across all 20. And for me, the main take home was, how variable that is. Every day is different, basically. And if you looked at the hour by hour concentrations in each of those days, even when the average was the same, the pattern's different. It's so subject to emissions and wind. But also there on the right, the individual site averages, you can see, even though some are clearly lower than others, they're all moving around with a mind of their own, each one. And these are all in the report, which we have a few hastily printed copies of here, but there's a proper coloured bound final one coming very soon, and it's got all those graphs in it.
So there's no correlation with like CDIL.
The guys at University of Canterbury tried to do that. When they did the cribbing, they call it, where they take the 20 results and sort of spread them all out to get a contour plot like that, they did take elevation into account. So they expected similar concentrations along the ridges to each other and slightly different ones along the valleys. But that didn't dominate as much as the different concentrations, in each of the different areas. But yes, there is a bit of a topography effect there, obviously. So that's the graphs of the dailies, and then this is on the one highest day of the study. And when you get the printed one, you can flip back and forth from that to the study average, but that black area of highest concentrations on the highest day, it's a little bit of a different shape to the previous one, which was the study average. And in this one, on that night, 6th of July, you see much more clearly the low concentrations all around the west side there, where there's clean air coming in from rural areas, and then kind of building and pooling a little bit. So I think it's partly that topography thing in and around the black area there. And again, we were relieved to see that Anzac Square is in that black area. It wasn't the absolute highest. Highest there was Parkside West, not far away, but technically under the NES was supposed to monitor in the worst place. We're not far away, certainly not enough to justify the expense of moving the sun. This is the mobile monitor on the vehicle, and I naively hoped it might have shown some lovely, smooth, gradual variations from one site to the next. So one was averaging 20 and the next site was 25, a fixed one. I thought the band might see a nice, gentle rise from one site to the other. No, nothing of the sort. You can see the colours there. The thing just leapt up and down madly as it drove along, basically. And of course, part of that is every time a car went past it, got a little puff of being 2.5, or if it went past the house from the smoky chimney, got another little puff. So it was very interesting, but say it didn't give the nice, straightforward interpolation between the fixed sites. If you average it up over a bit of a distance, you start to get close to the sort of suburban average. But and you can see here up in the northwest tends to be lower and higher down towards the southeast there. But huge variation, almost metre by metre, as the thing drove along. And that's a few thoughts from Angie on how representative is it. It's in a residential area and hasn't got sources very close to the monitor, which is good. We bias it. The State Highway 1, there was another issue that came up early on. Are all the motor vehicles there affecting it? And these mainly evening concentrations, and of course there's not as much traffic on State Highway 1 in the evening, but there's a wee graph on that coming up shortly. Okay, right there, that's just got the heavy traffic count on State Highway 1 and the all traffic count and M2.5 concentrations. And basically the brown line, all traffic, is exactly as you'd expect, morning peak and then low and then a rise. All traffic from Kirkwood, sorry, rise through the day, goes down at night. The PM2.5 does the opposite. It's got a morning peak, but it tends to be low during the day and then high in the evening. So there obviously is a contribution from traffic during that high volume daytime period, especially if the wind's going that way. But in this study, winter, mainly those cold, still winter nights that produce high VPRO concentrations, fairly minimal impact on the monitoring side from that traffic. Different story if you're living 6 feet away from the road, presumably, but where the monitoring site is, it's not majorly impacted by that road. And there's a daily pattern at all of the southern sites and all of the northern sites. And again, as you'd expect, a little bit of a blip in the morning, low during the day, and then rising overnight. That's a summary of every site, the daily PM2.5s, see how much they vary. And we think we broadly meet the MFE requirement that should be measured where the people are exposed the most, typical residential area. And we're going to rest through because we're running out of time and say these were Angie's conclusions. Highest concentrations down in that area tended to be lower concentrations around the boundary, especially around the northwest boundary, but we can get little bursts up in those areas for a while despite that. And basically no evidence to say we should be moving somewhere else other than NZ Square. So that's a couple of years' work crammed into 10 minutes. But as I say, it is all written up in a whole form in the report, a lot of technical stuff on how to do averaging and things like that, which I'm hoping is only a day or two away.
So if anyone's interested in having a tidier printed copy of that bound, maybe we let the team know and we can make sure we get the copy out to you. They are quite chunky, so if you're not interested, yeah.
Thanks very much, Tim. It's really interesting, and it's important to note that that is not just academic, but that actually really affects people's health, doesn't it? That poor air quality in the winter really does have an impact on people's health.
Yes.
Right. Councillor McKenzie.
Hi. I've read through the report and I just want to say that it seems to me that Anzac Square is extremely representative. I mean, I think it's from a health protective point of view, you couldn't ask for a better site because it's gonna show close to your worst case sort of scenario. So I think, you know, this is probably to me, it seems like the best site, having looked at all the other data around the area. So that's just from looking at the report.
Thank you. Councillor Whittington.
So I'm just wondering, the daily average is 44 in winter. What is it in summer like? Because I'm going back in history, I used to look at the PM10, and even in summer it was quite high at Washta. So I'm just wondering what the summer average is versus the winter average for air quality.
Yes, and I should have that at my fingertips.
I think you might be able to see it on one of the graphs in his presentation.
Okay.
See themes here.
Yeah. Over 2.5?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
let's go. But the short answer is really much, much lower. And in summer, of course, you're still getting a bit of coarse, but nowhere near as much as the fine. But Washta's a whole different world. It's completely different sources, concentrations, proportion of fine versus coarse, all of that. So can't extrapolate anything really from this to Washta.
Any more questions for Tim? Thanks, Tim, and all the team. That's a huge piece of work. I was lucky enough to have one of those monitoring stations in our backyard, so the Kensington one's actually at our house.
Oh, yes,
Was it
yes.
our house? Yeah.
Yes, as I say, we're really grateful for those people that hosted it. That was the key to the success of it, really.
You drift like your compost already.
My compost wasn't quite as hot then. I guess.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Joe, did Councillor Mackenzie get a copy of the next one?
Yes, yeah, I sent you both.
Thank you.
No problem.
Right.
I've forgotten that when I come to this venue, the font changes on this presentation, so hopefully it's not too. You'll notice it from what I've printed out on the handout. But look, I think there were a couple of things we were really just wanted to. Sorry, I couldn't get on this screen. There were really the spatial monitoring results for the particular meter of 2.5 microns was obviously what we wanted Tim to present on as being a big piece of work, and a kind of a request from this community to come back to. So, and as I said, if you're interested in a bound copy of that report, please let the team at Secretary know, and we'll make sure that gets distributed out. I just wanted to touch on 3 other aspects today around particularly the air quality in Timaru. And one is our ongoing approach to improving winter air quality. Then a little bit about Washta, because as Tim says, it's a bit of a different scenario, and there's some work in motion, but also a next step, and also an update on an interagency approach to crop residue burning. Sorry, that was Tim's slide. So just for the benefit of those that perhaps haven't seen some of these slides before, I've included a few about the trends. So we've highlighted here for the, we used to monitor at Timaru at both, Anzac Square and Green Road. There's Geraldine as a clean air zone, of course, in the Timaru district, and then there's Washdyke as well. So for the monitoring sites, we separate Washdyke and Timaru out, but under the rules for the clean air zone, it's just described as Timaru. So the rules for Washdyke home heating are the same as if you're in Timaru. So that's just a bit of a clarity. So you'll generally see that for the number of high pollution nights, which is of course our national environmental standard measure, is we're decreasing, the trend is decreasing over time, especially in Timaru. So that's around PM10 exceedances. So we're on a journey that's seen as in the right way. It's It's always interesting to know what the next winter will bring. And we've had our first exceedance for Timaru and PM10 just last week, which would normally be about the time we generally get most exceedances in the last few years in June and July, not so much in May like we used to. I guess the other part of that is not only is the number of exceedances decreasing, but also the amount by which they exceed, so the concentrations. So we've still got some exceedances, but we're no longer exceeding by some of those over 100 PM10 concentrations of over 100. So that top right-hand figure just shows that journey since we started monitoring Ray Road in 1999. And you can see that really seasonal pattern of highs in the winter, and again, it's that still clear nights when we get the inversion layer and it sits, and that's when that's why it's a winter air quality problem for Timaru and also Geraldine. The bottom left-hand corner is separates out the PM10 in brownie colour, and then the PM2.5 fraction of that, and which is in black. So that gives you the fact that sometimes we've got PM10 course happening January to June all the time. That's that coarser fraction in the background. The PM2.5 is the fine fraction that has a strong link to emissions from home heating in particular. So we see that coming up in the winter time.
Just that's the perfect answer to your question before.
So we see proportion of PM10 increases in winter and contributing to that. Portion of PM2.5 increases in winter, contributing to that exceedance. So Geraldine, thought I'd share that data with, again, the same trend. We don't exceed by as much. Of course, we remember this, the graph on the top right there only goes up to 100, not 200 plus. And we're just touching at that exceedance level, which is a daily average of 50, 24-hour average of 50. In February last year, there was an exceedance in Geraldine that actually got exempt from, we put an exemption into the Ministry of the Environment. But of course, it still shows in our data as happening, because it did actually happen, but that was an explainable event. So we've got that same trend of the proportion of PM2.5 and PM10. I guess just to reiterate the framework we have for continuing to improve our air quality, the Canterbury Air Regional Plan sets out the provisions for activities that results in discharges to air, and as I've said, for winter it's particularly linked to home heating appliances, but it also has provisions for industrial emissions outward during dust over. Given the winter air quality issues, the framework within the CARP sets out home heating appliance standards that really sees a lift in technology over time. So we have, it's got a framework where in Timaru, Clean Air Zone, you can only now install an ultra low emission burner, and your ULEV, low emission burner, has to be replaced within 15 years, and that's about tuning the technology up to get improved discharges over time, lower emission appliances that emit lower concentrations. In Geraldine, the rule which came into effect January the 1st this year was that you can, in Geraldine, the air quality has not got the same length of improvement to make, so it has a bit more of a permissive framework where you can have an LE ultra low emission burner or a low emission burner that doesn't have an expiry date. And of course, in Geraldine's, Waimati's got the same rules as that. But in Ashburton and Christchurch and Raviora and Kaiapoi, where we have other gazetted airsheds, they have, you can only install an ultra low emission burner, or your low emission burner has an expiry date, in that case of 20 years. So I guess it's about seeing improvement in technology to get less or any point source from a home be having lower emissions over time. So that framework's all in place, and we've got no new compliance status coming in now. So for the last 2 years, or 3 years, we've had dates for Timaru and Waimati and Geraldine, and it's actually been quite complicated for our community. So it's a bit simpler. We've got a chance to go, okay, how do we really tell a simple story of what people need to do and the options around home So I think that's been really useful. And the next slide after this, I've got some of the advertising we're doing around in our campaign approach. Traditionally, for the last 3 or 4 years in Timaru, we've been running a No Visible Smoke campaign where we've had teams out in the evening identifying where there are excessive smoke and leading education and material. There's been and we've been quite clear about briefing this council about that approach and working with the media to alleviate community concern. We're not doing that approach this year. We put it to bed and decided, no, let's focus on really working with the people who have really having trouble burning and have a long history of smoking. So we're going, the findings from last year's results said most people in the community are doing the right thing and are making the changes they need to make. So where there's ongoing issues, they're the ones we're going to work with a lot closer, but we're just going to be reminding people that they still have things they need to do when there's non-compliant burning. So that's a bit of we have a website, and it's a regional approach as well, because obviously other questions, cleaning zones, leadership practices. But we've got Warmer Cheaper, we want to get people burning better. So we did a survey recently of people who had a compliant burner last winter, but still were excessively smoking. Had a bit of a questionnaire to find out, what were your issues? And there's, we would and bad technique and all sorts of things. So that we know there's lots of folks. The appliance is only one factor for a good clean air emission. The technique people use for burning and how they operate their appliance, and also the material they burn are the other 2 elements. So we've always had a strong education focus on getting people to burn better, and that's still in place. So we've got a bit of a reframe of our promotion. You might see some adverts that look like this either coming through Facebook feeds or social media if you land on a certain website, but also within the Courier, local paper, etc. So I just wanted to, we've been on a journey, and this is a regional campaign as well. Everyone's doing their bit. Most people are doing the right thing to make the improvements they need to make. It doesn't change overnight. We've still got a way to go, and we've got a journey to go with NFD reviews the NESAT to 2.5, because we've all got a journey to go on every issue in Canterbury. So that's, but it does match what we're doing, the good burning techniques and education, the link to where to go to people with wood, and all those aspects that we've discussed in this forum before. Really important to remember that we actually have financial support for people and some options. That's part of, we know it's a big commitment for them to upgrade their home heating. We run a subsidy program that's in place, and for the draft budget for the coming year, there's money available, and there was additional funds put in by the council in a decision in December to allocate Geraldine and Waimetti some money, because they haven't been running as long. We've also got the Healthier Homes in Canterbury program of work, which is an advance against your rates. That gives people, so far we've had 120 applications approved since September 2018, so people are making use. That's the South Canterbury, Timaru district. People are making use, and that's actually open to anybody, whether they're in a clean air zone or not. The subsidies are only available for Geraldine and Timaru residents. 9 suppliers in Timaru for that Healthy Homes Canterbury framework. And then we support households with a temporary waiver. We work with them. Sometimes people have a lot going on where actually upgrading my home heating is the last thing I can deal with, and we will work with those people about putting provisions in place that enables them to just focus on the extenuating circumstances they might be in and be on a journey to upgrade. And some of that is also about age as well. So that's a one-on-one approach, because it is also about being certain that we're doing the right thing.
Could you just give a brief explanation, please, of how the subsidy works?
So we've got some eligibility criteria. So it's for a homeowner that has a community services card. So they need to have a community services card that can go towards an upgrade. It's a maximum amount of $5,000, and it can go towards an upgrade. The costs associated with upgrading to a wood burner or a heat pump. And it can include things like, scaffolding and not just the device, so it's a wraparound. there is the option ECA obviously now have, when we set up subsidies, there was no one else doing subsidies for home heating. ECA now do, so I know that we use Energy Smart here, they do the home assessment, so there's no point spending all the money putting in a device if you've not got good insulation and other things. So it's a whole of approach. So they get an assessment, they come with a recommendation of what's needed for the home, as well as the homeowner's preference, and then we make a decision on that. So, yeah. So that's the sort of a summary for the winter year ahead. So we're not, I guess, it was a bit of a call to what do we do around the traditionally controversial program that we had, and we've just decided let's do something different. We've been doing the same thing now for several years. It's a great opportunity to recalibrate and connect, and really get those people who just are probably a bit more transient on their journey, or entrenched, I should say. The wash nights are very different beast, and I gave a presentation at the end of September last year around wash nights. So just to explain this graph, the very bright yellow is the current monitoring site at Alpine Energy. The orange is where it was prior to the sale and development of that land behind ETNZ. The purple dots indicate we're in 2009. In addition, I think, to where those two sites are, we did do some monitoring for a period of time to try and find, where could we put a monitoring site. So it's some time ago, but from that result, we do know that the Washite Flat Road it was slightly better than a lot of the other sites as far as PM10 concentrations, and when we had to relocate the site, there was a lot of work exploring where we could go, meeting some criteria, including power supply, etc. And so the Alpine Energy site has been in since February last year. So air quality in Washite's quite a different composition in that if you look at that bottom left graph, the PM2.5 contribution is low all the time. So that's mainly a coarse fraction that's contributing to that. And you can see we've always had, even at Washite Flat Road, there's always been quite a few exceedances, but you can see we're at 14 now at the new site. So we've got something happening there. Last year we did for a period of a month, in about June, we put out some sampling to actually find out so we could analyse what actually made up that PM210 fraction, thinking was it sea salt, something that we can't control, or other things. And a lot of the results came through, which I presented last year, which clearly said it was predominantly soil particles, dust, grit, that kind of solid material. Not so much carbon, etc. So PM10.5's Washite's PM10 exceedances are quite different to when we exceeded them. It's not linked to that high PM2.5 concentrations. They occur in a range of conditions, in a number of different wind directions and speeds. And so that filter analysis we did last year, we had salt as sun roll, but soil material and sediment are significant contributions. It also has quite a diurnal pattern of peaks in morning and afternoons. At the moment, there's some work around stormwater management assessments on site, gathering information about how businesses are managing stormwater. It's feeding into the Washite project. While our staff, and I think some TDC staff as well, it's a joint project, are out doing that assessment, they're also gathering some information on likely sources, and that site being a likely source for PM10 contributions. And that could be because of consented activities, but it could also be unconsolidated services, bulk handling of material, etc. So we're gathering that on the ground information. And once we've got that pairing with the data and the science, we're kind of keen to go, is there a pattern where we might be able to do some more detailed investigations, etc. So there's a little bit, I guess that was a bit about the way forward, is we're keen that once we've got that info in about the opportunity, perhaps a workshop around Washtike in particular. But while that project was all set to go the week before we went to level 2 the first time. So it's got pushed back a little bit in timing, and the staff are just out now following up with that. But the business is still being completed. So I just thought I'd let you know that we've got some on-ground truth info happening, because it's not likely just to be consented here discharges. It's likely to be permitted activity or other factors. And then just the last bit, just to close off, the start of this year we did an interagency approach around crop residue burning, which Timaru District Council was part of, along with Waimate District. This really reflected the previous year, a lot of angst in our community around the effects of crop residue burn and on the urban environment, especially when you've got home heating bills in an urban environment, and the effects of that. So we get a lot of complaints, but we know that Environment Canterbury don't just get the complaints, FENZ get the calls, and the District Council get the calls. So how do we understand each other's roles in this better, and how can we better work together with those people who undertake this activity? It is a permitted activity under the Canterbury Regional Plan, but within the buffer zone around Timaru, you need a consent. And there was a case where there was a fire that wasn't consented, happened up on Oldfield Road, and they got followed through the infringement notice. So there is a little bit where, how do we just get better? So we really worked with Foundation of Arable Research. We've got a bit of sort of a close off of this project to do. It got a bit interrupted around COVID because crop residue burn was still happening, even though FENZ were asking, please consider not to. And we had, through between February and May, we had 49 complaints in the Waimate and Timaru area, districts around outdoor burning, and about half of those relate to crop residue burn, because outdoor burning can also be on hedge or shelter belt, etc. So there's a little bit of work to go, but it's been an interesting one, and I think for me, the big bit where I see effort needed is the relationship with the Foundation of Arable Researchers and their work with the farmers. I think there's a big opportunity to get a lift in practice getting
Councillor Mackenzie.
Sorry, another question. Bit of a geeky question. If you could bring up slide number 5, the Timaru air quality monitoring, where you've got your daily average PM10 concentrations. So my question is, if you superimpose your average temperature on that data, and say if you corrected for temperature, what would your data look like once you've subtracted the effect of average temperature? So I guess what I'm saying is there any gradual warming that you can see that's actually also contributing to the drop in particulates, so that you can separate out how effective your program actually is?
Sounds like a science question.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting one because it ties into the whole climate change and all the predictions going forward, which is what Angie's mainly looking at now. We're looking at that right across the group of groundwater and surface water and air quality. We're issuing 35-year consents. People are saying, well, what's the air quality going to be in 2050? And what are the meteorological conditions going to be? And of course, we don't know. But I think the short answer is, for the current time, the individual variation in meteorology year by year is so huge that it swamps any slight trend towards in warming. The warming trend is far more worrying because it carries on and on, for hundreds of years, whereas the variation just wobbles about. But
you can't yet really see the effect of that gradual warming. And a classic example, in 2019, there was that downward blip, and then it looks awful. We shot back up, all that hard work, and it suddenly got worse. Well, no, it wasn't. Sorry, 2018, yeah. But it wasn't. That was just, it was a really wet, again, you'll remember better than me, misty, foggy start to winter. So a lot of annual variation, natural if you like, and yes, lurking behind it is that warming trend, but I think it's more looking forward that that's going to be a big influence.
Thank you. Councillor Booth.
With regards to the Alpine Energy monopoly slot, it's quite in the middle of four major emitters.
We think you're not being one. Oh, sorry.
The new site's right amongst, obviously, 4 major emitters using colour. I guess it's a bit reasonably straightforward to work with those 4 and ensure that they're monitoring. Do they do self-monitoring in regards to their outputs?
So the businesses that have a consent to discharge their gear, that's usually related to some sort of boiler activity, although it can be more than that. They monitor and they do self-monitoring, and they have to get maintenance reports and those sorts. I guess there's also a lot of permitted activities that are permitted around there that also are likely to be a source of P10 as well. So just focusing on the consented activities alone is unlikely to be sole focus, but that's something that is in place, that monitoring those consents.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Joe or Tim? Thank you so much. That was, oh, sorry.
I just wanted to ask a bit more about that subsidy stuff. So you said it was for owners. Is there any sort of, you're doing a bit more direct targeting? So transient, you made a comment about it being transient people. Is there some sort of set up for the lower economic, people who are in rental homes or, like with the immigrant centre or the food bank people who can help identify some of those people who are in those areas that are probably going to be possibly burning those kind of products, and not necessarily just about access, about knowledge of how to do it here.
And I think it's a really important feature because the subsidy schemes for homeowners, historically it's been available to landlords, etc. As was ECA. There's been lots of years of that opportunity. So there is, we have Felicia's Mark and Anna here who are our equality implementation officers, and they do a lot of working. So when we say an education approach, if somebody's having issues, and it might come to our attention because we've had a smoky chimney complaint, the neighbours get up, and we try and engage with the homeowner to find out what are you doing, do you know how your fire works, is your wood works, test the moisture content, actually find out, because actually a lot of people coming to New Zealand as migrants aren't used to this little device to heat your home. So, so the burning technique is actually quite important. So they're willing to work with the homeowner or the occupant to understand how to use the fire more efficiently to get the burning smoke free, because you can do the fire smoke free. So, so I think that's a really important. It does. One of the challenges is that some people aren't willing to engage that one-on-one approach, and so working with other agencies is a key way that Mark and Anna try and take the fear out of what that engagement might mean, because it is about getting better heat in your home.
Yes, well, that's what I was saying. So we've got the immigrant centre here, we're also doing an amazing job with people through different areas, groups that can help identify as well.
We are aware that there is a bit of a barrier of engaging in the education space with a regulator. There might be a bit of a fear, but it is, you're trying to get that lift in practice.
Councillor Booth.
Thank you. So do Environment Canterbury consider what is the main contributor? Is it actually the unseasoned wood, or is it actually the mechanical devices that people, the burners that people have got in their houses, which is the high priority?
So there's three elements to burning with low emission, smoke free, the appliance, how well it's maintained, etc. What you're burning and how you burn it. If you overload it and tamp it down, you're going to have problems. So all three play a factor and role. There's a rule framework in the CART plan that sets about improved technology over time, getting those burners swapped out to improve. But those other factors around good, and that's why we run the trusted good merchants or good wood merchant scheme to try and direct people to go where they can go and reliably get wood that we audit that we know is sold at the appropriate dryness, as opposed to what might be on the side of the road somewhere.
So you wouldn't consider 2/3 of the issues are the fact that people are burning inferior material rather than the 30/30?
We haven't done the analysis of those breakdowns. Well, not to my knowledge.
Well, our fieldwork would indicate that would not necessarily be the case. We do know that the good wood providers provide very good wood. We do know that the people selling alongside the road, some of it's good, some of it's not so good. We also know that technique has been a significant part. And as the improvement in technology has been, that has actually alleviated people being able to shut them entirely down and use their issue. So that has alleviated quite a bit, which has actually brought it down over a period of time. We're still working on the other two factors, but some of that's outside of our control, and we just really try to engage with people.
Thanks. Thanks very much. It's a really interesting topic, and it's definitely one that generates quite a bit of debate outside the council. Yes, and attracts a fair bit of media. So thank you both very much for that update. It's really great.
Thank you, and let us know about the comments, and also when I'll be in touch around when we've got that field analysis done for Bushlight and way forward.
Thank you.
Right, move on to item 7.2, page 11 in your agenda. A road naming report. And Tracy, you're going to. Can we just, would someone like to move that we receive the air quality in a second, please? Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you. Nathan Hobbs available this morning, so I'm here to speak to the report. Really don't accept it as read. You're reasonably familiar with the road naming process. Happy to take any questions.
No questions? I'm happy to move that we accept, and Councillor Byrne happy to second. All those in favour? Aye. So moved. And in the absence of any matters of a minor nature, we'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.